Hello, now today we have a Volkswagen ID Buzz with us, which you might already know is one of the most hotly anticipated cars of 2023. It promises to be an MPV for the modern world, and of course, it's got to live up to that legendary 60s Volkswagen name. So, let's see if it can do it. Now this ID Buzz, aside from being one of the most exciting cars of 2023, is also potentially one of the most practical. As you can probably see, it is pretty large in here, and it feels large even on our wide racetrack, Rockingham. And that's because this being the MEB platform, well, it's one of the biggest forms of that Volkswagen base. It means it's got a big battery, it's got 77 kilowatt hours, and if you don't know what that means, all you need to know is it comes with a claimed range of 255 miles, which is pretty good for something shaped like a brick and as big and heavy as this. It's 2.5 tons, but it doesn't feel it. Do you know what? The weight is all low in this car, and obviously the MEB platform, which is basically Volkswagen's electric architecture, which this and basically all of its new ID models are based off of, well, it has all of its weight, or most of the weight, very low in the car, which means it handles quite nicely. Although I'm not going to tell you this thing is super exciting to drive on track. Just know that with 204 horsepower, 310 Newton meters of torque, which is a sizable amount of muscle, this thing can crack 62 in 10.2 seconds, but it feels quicker when you're rolling. If I come out of this corner here and just roll from 40 up to 50, yeah, it's a smooth, very linear delivery of power, but it gets going. You're not going to be asking for more performance. And of course, this is a family car, or at least it could be a family car, but it also could be a camper. And obviously the original Volkswagen Bus, the car that this thing is sort of based on in terms of lineage and styling, well, that car obviously was turned into so many different things. Whether you bought your posh coffees out the back or whether you spent a night in one at a festival, those campers are legendary. But this inside is a little bit more sensible and a little bit more functional. And it's also very technically capable. Now, I've mentioned those statistics, and it will charge as well from 10 to 80% with a fast charger plug or a rapid charger in about 30 minutes, which is also bang on the money these days. But the fact I'm going around bends at Rockingham, which is supposed to represent our twisty B road, maybe one down in Dorset, it handles nice. Absolutely no joy in driving this thing quickly. It's very much just a machine with some steering, brakes and an accelerator, but it does go round corners, and crucially, it's very simple to drive. In the old one, you would have had to drop a gear or two, or maybe three, because it didn't have much power. But this thing, plenty of muscle, no problems whatsoever. And I think loading up the back of this thing, towing a ton of brake trailer, and maybe having loads of stuff on the roof as well, where you're not going to have any troubles getting this thing around. Now, it does actually come with a few adaptable features, and the one that I think most people use is they're going to click into B mode, which is basically brake. It stands for brake because it turns up the regenerative technology, the technology that allows the electric motor, which drives the rear wheels, to send energy back into the battery. Now, this is a common feature. Those of you who know your EVs will know this is a very common feature, but it's going to be crucial in a vehicle like this, because if you're doing your long distance driving, if you're going to drive down to the south coast of France, or even if you're just heading out to Cornwall from some far off part of the country, well, you're going to want to maximize your range, aren't you? And so having B mode, by twisting from D, the drive mode, into brake, when I come off the accelerator, the car decelerates quite rapidly. In fact, look, 40, 40, 39, 30, I can't keep up, 30, 28, it's slowing down a lot, basically. There's no reason for me to need to brake. And let's see if it brings the car to a stop. 10, 9, no. So it's going to crawl at about 5 miles per hour, 3 miles per hour, which is fine. It means you don't have to brake unless you're doing an emergency stop. Definitely brake in those moments, or unless you're coming to a complete halt in traffic. Otherwise, you're just going to be on and off the accelerator pedal, which is great, and it maximizes your range. You could certainly kill a lot of miles in this car as well. I know it rides pretty well. We've been moving around in the center of the Rockingham infield, and it does handle those bumps and a few of our artificial speed bumps very well indeed. It doesn't feel it's 2.5 tons, put it that way. And the seats as well, just as a place to be, the interior is very comfortable. We'll talk about the rear seats in a minute, but Up front, sat nice and prominent and quite high in the seating position. It's electric, by the way, in this style model. You can lower the seat down, but you're still pretty perched up. And visibility is really good. There's so much glass around, and while we do have a reversing camera, the parking sensors around this car are very good. You actually just have plenty of analog visibility. Good visibility through the rear, great visibility across the front, really nice tall door mirrors so I can see up and down. Basically, I just feel very comfortable driving this thing, and even parking is very, very easy because of the mix of digital and the mix of analog visibility you have. Drive modes as well are plentiful in this car. You've got adaptive cruise, you've got all of the safety autonomous features you'd want in a vehicle where you're traveling many miles, potentially with the kids in the back. You can kind of relax a little bit when driving long distance, let the car do the heavy lifting, and you can just focus on enjoying this pretty comfortable cabin. So when it comes to the interior of this ID Buzz, it's got a few features many ID fans will recognize, namely these two screens ahead of me here. You've got this bigger infotainment screen here, and you've got a very familiar instrument cluster here, which looks to me like it's been pinched straight from the ID3 and ID4. Now, this infotainment system, it does suit the car very well. It looks cool, crisp, quite modern and youthful, but it gets those annoying fiddly heater controls you get in all of the Volkswagens with this system, which, as you can see here, don't work when you want them to. You do get used to it, but it's a bit of an annoyance. Although the rest of this interior, I have to say, is very functional and extremely practical. There is so much storage space. You've got cubby holes and little sections to throw things down all over the dash and all around me here, which means you can put your phone in a place that's out of sight. And also you've got 3 USB-C ports. You've got a couple down here, and then you've also got one in the passenger door as well, which is quite unique and I think very, very useful. It's a very spacious interior up front. I mean, it's very roomy in here, and I think it's pretty spacious in the back as well. Am I right, David? Let's have a closer look. Now, predictably, it's pretty large in the back here. This is a big car. There's definitely space for 2 grown adult men. I'm very comfortable, and I'm sat with this seat upright as it is set in the car, and it means I've got loads and loads of knee room and acres of headroom above me and to the side as well. Very spacious, and I think you can have 3 kids in the back of this, no problems whatsoever. And of course, to keep them entertained, Volkswagen's thought some things through. It's put these trays in here which are adjustable. So first you can have them set at this height, which is for your tablet or your phone, but you can of course raise them a little bit more or have them fully upright in a horizontal position so you can put your cup in there and have your lunch as well. So it's a very versatile interior. Look, there's even a pouch for your phone in there and more storage space in here. So as an interior and as a thing to throw kids in the back of and then just drive miles and miles to go on holiday, this is an excellent interior. Isn't that right, David? So, it does the MPV thing pretty well, but of course this car is emulating that 60s Volkswagen camper vibe, which means it has to have a lot of space in the back to carry all of your equipment. And thankfully, it does. This automatic tailgate here, I mean, you can see the size of the tailgate is massive because this thing is van-like in size, but the boot as well is quite van-like. It's pretty enormous, and when you fold those seats down, you've got so much room ahead of you. Now, interestingly, you've got this elevated platform here, which is pretty useful if you want to have some stuff loaded up here and then have stuff hidden under here. But you can also remove these layers here so that it just becomes a fully open section, which makes it easily one of the most practical cars you can buy. And of course, it comes with so many added features. Look, if I pull this little switch down here, there you go, you've got a tow bar. This thing can tow up to a ton of brake trailer. If I kick that back under here, I can see over there, we've also got a 12-volt plug. So that 12-volt means you can either power your trailer or, of course, you can plug in things at the back of the car like, I don't know, your hairdryer. All right, so at 60K, this thing is not cheap, but it does offer a lot. Firstly, it's a very practical family offering. It drives really nicely as well, and I think it does keep some of that 60s Volkswagen camper vibe alive. So much so, in fact, that I might just stay here at Camp Rockingham overnight. And to enable that, I brought along these nifty tent over here. Pretty good, actually, this thing, because all you do is you just pop it open like this, and never mind. I'll just sleep in it, shall I? Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, of course, click the like button, and don't forget, if you haven't already, get subscribing to the channel. Good night.